I was recently asked on Discord about whether I got a new mic. No, this is not a new mic. I am not using a mic. What you are hearing now is an AI-generated voice from 11labs.io that was created using the free version of their software. In fact, given that I was using the free version of their software so far and did not yet pay them, I would encourage you to go and check out their service and perhaps pay for it if you like it, because their free version seems so good. And it might not be available for free forever if their company does not turn sufficient profit for all I know. Regardless, what I do know is that my YouTube channel does not have enough subscribers to receive any payments in return for ads, so I am using the free version of 11 Labs for a free communication, even though it is entirely possible in the future that I might need to pay for 11 Labs based on their licensing if I would still want to use it after my YouTube channel becomes bigger and could start to receive payment for ad money if it ever does.
We live in an unprecedented time of AI-generated content, and the 11 Labs voices can be quite expressive and almost lifelike, in my personal opinion. It will be fascinating to see where society goes next.
That's all pretty creepy, and you can see my attempts to convince a supercomputer to generate pictures of a sunglasses sheep next to Jaina Proudmoore don't always work and sometimes give Jaina the glasses. But I figured it would be good to help advertise 11 Labs since their product was working well for me. Note that the images are not from 11 Labs, only the audio is. Now that that is out of the way, allow me to respond to a YouTube comment I received recently. This person said I should work for Blizzard. However, allow me to respond by sharing some content that was not AI-generated. The following is a real recording of me from over a year ago, at a time when I had been let go from my job, explaining why I did not even want to apply to Blizzard even when I had no job. After recording these thoughts, I did end up convincing myself to apply twice to Blizzard based on the assumption that doing so would not hurt anything. But it went nowhere anyway. Perhaps Blizzard agrees with my initial thoughts that follow.
So I was kind of thinking, what if I do a little bit of War Smash and chill? Here's this War Smash. I spent like all my weekends writing this. That's great. But what does that really matter? That doesn't really matter at all. In fact, I think a good way to think about it is that with most video games in today's time frame, the video game means one of two things. It either means art or it means transfer of wealth from someone basically less intelligent to someone more intelligent because someone understood the game. There's no transfer of wealth going on with this game that I'm writing, so as a result, I think it would be really reasonable to compare it to a form of art. Although, in some sense, still, you know, if I was sitting here staring at a painting that I had drawn as a background while I was talking, although I think that would be very similar, obviously we could tell ourselves that there were a couple of differences. But I think that it's a lot like that. It's a lot like that. And I think it's important to remember that it is like that. That it is, you know, if I was sitting here talking about, you know, here's this painting I drew, and obviously I didn't draw any of this. All of this is Blizzard's original artwork from the year 2002 or whatever. But in concept, there are similarities. And so along with that, if we think about what that would mean for me or something, would I work at Blizzard? I would say no, I don't want to work at Blizzard. Absolutely not, because Blizzard Entertainment isn't interested in the kind of game that I want to play anymore. So when I was in college, I interviewed at a great many places. Maybe there are a lot of people who interviewed a lot more than I did, but you know, I definitely had like an interview with like Google and Microsoft and there's a whole bunch of others. You know, I stopped by, there were some recruiters from Bloomberg. We had a great chat with them. I had dinner with some of them back in college. I had interviewed with a bunch of others. You know, had an interview with Raytheon, had an interview with, you know, Caterpillar, those guys. Had a call with L3 Harris. You know what I never did in college? I never even applied to Blizzard. Okay, and that is not an accident. That is how I made my life decisions. And that is how I am going to continue to make my life decisions. Because it is the right way to make decisions. And even if you really liked drawing art, I don't think you would want to interview with Picasso's corpse. I think that that would actually be like a really bad idea. Because if you did interview with Picasso's corpse, you might be forced to realize that he's dead. And I think it's really similar with Warcraft. It really is. It's really, really similar with Warcraft. You know, you would not want to work for Picasso's corpse, no matter how much you like art. The same thing with a lot of other people. So then you get into, what about people, artists that are still alive today, and you really like their art? And so maybe you've taken their art and you've mounted it on your wall, kind of like how I, took War Smash and put the Blizzard art in it. Does that mean that you would want to go work for that artist whose art you mounted on your wall? And I would say no. I don't think you want to do that. I do not think you would. So there was a time in my life that I was having a conversation with some great people who I worked with for a long time. And they were asking me about my future plans. And in order to kind of deliberate and think about, well, what am I going to do? What is really my plan? I told them at the time, I said, well, maybe I'm going to go work at Blizzard. Because right at that time, contrary to my expectations, Blizzard was actually going back and reworking the game that I like to play to try to make a newer, better version of this thing. And just kind of like upgrade it in ways of who knew really what they were going to do. Obviously, they weren't going to tell me what they were going to do, but they said they were doing something with it. There was one guy I knew, and he really wanted me to interview there. So there was this moment in time where I was like momentarily interested in maybe wanting to work at Blizzard, but it was a horrible time in my career for trying to make that kind of change in career path, because I'd already been working at this place that I had started working at, and I'd been working there for basically, a pretty good month or two, but not very long. And so if you just work somewhere for a month or two and then change jobs, yeah, maybe I knew that, this one game is the game I'd been playing for 15 years and an opportunity to work on it would be pretty fun. But that doesn't really look good at all on paper if you were ever going to work anywhere else. So then the question is, did I think that I would only work at Blizzard, or did I want to work anywhere else? And I absolutely did not want to work at Blizzard on their other products, because that gets back to what is a video game? It's one of two things. It's either art or it's a transfer of wealth. And there are a lot of people who would disagree with that. They would say maybe it's a thought problem or a puzzle. I'm considering that a form of art, because if I had a thought problem or a puzzle, I could pay someone to give me that, and then I go and enjoy it. And so that's just kind of like something that I do. And so in that sense, it's like I'm getting an enjoyment out of that, and that's very much like art. You can compare and contrast things and tell me that it's different than art in some way, but that's kind of how I'm looking at it. So anyway, you have this company. Years ago, they made a piece of art that I like. I don't know that I really want to work with people who work there now, because they're all interested in a transfer of wealth, and I understand that. I understand why that's what they want to do, but I'm not really very interested in that. Well, let me put that differently. I am interested in a transfer of wealth at having a job, the job that feels like a real job and not a video game. You could do almost anything other than making art, and it would be more profitable. And that's the kind of job that I like to have, is basically almost anything else that isn't doing art for Blizzard or something, because that is not a job in my eyes. It would be fun if it were, and there are some people for whom it is, but they're probably also miserable, because at some point they have to come to terms with the fact that it's actually the people who do the transfer of wealth that get to tell them what art they get to make anyway. So they're not really going to be doing whatever it is that they want to be doing. They're going to be doing whatever other people tell them it's okay to be doing. So there you go. That's kind of my 2 cents on the world of video games. And there was definitely like this momentary time in 2017 where I thought, well, maybe I want to work with this company. Maybe I was wrong about it all along. And so then they made Warcraft Reforged, the lowest rated video game of all time in human history or something like that. And that just reiterated to me that I had been right all along, that actually I didn't want to tie my future to this, because that's not a reasonable thing to do. This company isn't actually interested really in much of that kind of thing, and so it's much better if you just don't work with the company, and then you don't have to worry about that at all. And that was kind of my philosophy, and it really has paid out really, really well for me to maintain that philosophy. So instead of dealing with them or paying them for whatever the heck it is they think that I might want to buy, which they don't really understand very well, I much prefer to use the art that they created 20 years ago and write my own code on top of that art, because their system that they intended to be moddable isn't really that moddable. They don't really have the funds to make it moddable, so there's really no way to use their system in the way that I would intend to be able to just be like modifying things or doing whatever the heck I want. So it's all kind of its own problem with a lot of that stuff, but the moral of the story for me, I think, is that I've been in a pretty good place, and I've been in a pretty good place because I didn't want to work at Blizzard. So that's great. That's great. I think that's a good thing. I am going to continue to not want to work at Blizzard. I think that is going to be great. And as you can see right now, I'm playing this game in my own replica of it. So for them, in modern society, because wealth transfer is really more important than anything else you could do, the other thing that can lead to wealth transfer is data collection, actually. So that's pretty much why my theory on probably why Warcraft Reforged was actually created is that it's all about data collection. That the people doing this, they kind of took the code of the game, they broke a couple things, and they added a couple things, and that's kind of cool to add a couple things, but they definitely also broke a few things. And then after doing that, they published what they made as this new update for everyone, that no matter what you did, it would delete the old one and force you to have the new one unless you worked really hard and did some great registry key workarounds or something like that. And they forced everyone on the new one, and the new one has to always be online. They got rid of this concept of a game as something that you would just sort of launch on your computer and it would do whatever you want, and it became this idea that it should be always online because basically just every video game today is an always online game. That's just what they do. So that became kind of like this Warcraft Reforged thing, create this thing, get better data collection, make everyone always online, and while you're doing it, maybe try to convince them that it's still the same game as it was before, because what do the users care, right? So they're spending all this time on that, and I guess my takeaway as that's happening is that I'm able to rewrite the entire game. Like what I'm playing right now, you would think that it actually was their game, but it's not. It's actually a piece of Java code running on my computer that's getting like 100 FPS. And so typically for me, these things are to a point where they're just pretty chill. You can see I had a FPS spike because my pathfinding is a little bit bad, but I can be here, doing my combat with this Pandarin over here, and I can still get 100 FPS in Java, which most people say is like slow and a bad language and whatever the heck else. So for the most part, I really find that I don't have to care about performance much on this because it's solved. Like even in a language that's supposedly not performant, I can still get hundreds of FPS and it's fine. And so it makes you wonder then, in a world where I could do that, what is my relationship to this company? And it's basically like ripping them off, I guess, which is kind of unfortunate, but then again, it's not, because I did pay them for this game. In fact, I actually bought this game like 50 times one time for fun. So I don't really feel like I'm ripping them off doing this, because to be honest, like, I probably am one of their best customers for this particular strategy game that I'm playing right now, just in terms of like net total revenues or something like that. So anyway, that's something, but it kind of makes you wonder. Kind of makes you wonder about life. So where am I going next? Where am I going next? I had a great job not at Blizzard, and that was really good.